Welcome everyone to another edition of the Cultures for Health podcast, where we discuss all things related to fermentation. We believe that the best fermented foods and beverages are DIY, and we are here to supply you with the tools you need to get started, guidance through the process, and to help you achieve your fermentation goals. I am Wendy, your host for today, and in today's episode, we are going to be talking with Cara about one of our new product launches, Jun SCOBY. If you don't know what Jun SCOBY is, then definitely stick around. Cara is going to tell you all about it and so much more. And don't forget to check out our website for a lot more information at culturesforhealth.com. All right, let's go. Hey Cara, welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you here today. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit more about your background in fermentation?
Sure. So, I guess to know my background in fermentation, you really kind of need to know my background in food. I started cooking when I was a junior in high school, and I competed in baking competitions, which is where I would really say my interest in fermentation started, in the sense of bread. I started making bread, and it was a piece that I had to do in my competition, and I realized there was a lot more science and a lot more that went into it than kind of just cooking. And then I went to college, I got my degree in baking, still really loved bread. And I went to a culinary institute where they offer a bachelor's in culinary science. So I went ahead and did that. And right after I graduated, I got my job at Cultures for Health. And I've been at Cultures for Health for almost 3 years. And so in Cultures for Health, I've really expanded my knowledge past bread into basically all things food ferments. In my culinary science degree, we did things like cheeses, and we did cured meats a little bit, so I had a little bit of experience from there. We made yogurts once or twice, but I really gained a lot of my knowledge and experience from being hands-on with my work.
You know, I had no idea that you would learn fermentation in culinary school. That is new information for me.
Yeah, so like bread is bread, right? So like bread is fermentation, and I think most people would really be surprised like how many fermented foods that they eat on an average day. And so when you're doing a science program, like it makes sense to do, to do cheeses and yogurts and all of that, because part of science is microbial activity and all of those things. And we studied those things, and so we had to make a product to be able to study those things. It definitely was not as much as I had hoped for. Like there are fermentation degrees and there are brewing degrees, and I think it would be really interesting to like pursue that sometime in the future just for extra knowledge. But it I would say, if nothing else, it definitely at least piqued my interest and made me research a company like Cultures for Health. And when I landed on for Cultures for Health and I saw that they had bread, I was like, wow, I love bread. I would love to develop someone's fermentation program for bread. And then I found out we bought it and we didn't make it ourselves, and I was really sad. But then at that point I had been roped in by water kefir and kombucha, and I just kind of I fell in love with products outside of bread and stuck around. My ferments are my babies, and yeah.
This is the perfect job for you then.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's why, that's part of the reason why I've been here so long, is because I just it's alive, so it makes every day interesting. It's not predictable. Every day is not going to be the same. And I like problem solving, and I've been with our ferments for long enough now that I can literally look at them, smell them, and know exactly what's wrong with them. So I really do. I know our ferments like nobody else. I take pride in that, and to me, that's really what delivers a quality product to our customers, is that we have a knowledgeable team striving to do and give the best. And I definitely think that starts with me, because I'm the one who trains them. So
we are lucky to have you. Very lucky.
Very lucky to be here.
You're so passionate about it.
Yeah.
So we're talking today about this Jun SCOBY, and that's something that you've created or you've brought into Cultures for Health as a new product launch. Can you tell us more about Jun SCOBY and what is it?
So it's not my idea. I'm not really sure that, I shouldn't say I'm not sure, but I don't think that you could come up with a new ferment these days. Everything's been done. And so for me personally, like I like to see everything's been done, but I like to see how I can do it a little bit differently. And I think with some of the unique ingredients and stuff that we have at Cultures for Health, we are able to achieve things that I guess like everyday mom and pop shops may not necessarily be able to achieve. But yeah, so Jun SCOBYs, I like kombucha, and I stumbled across Jun one day. I found it on Etsy in some, Susie Homemaker mom and pop shop, and I bought one, and I was just really interested because, like, personally, I love honey, and honey has a great history of, antibacterial, antifungal, whatever, like it, prevents infections. People have used it for centuries, for healing, restorative properties, and so fermentation has too. And so to me, it was exciting to see a product that housed something like honey and something like ferments, because I was like, wow, that's like almost like double the power. And so yeah, I got really excited about Jun. I made it for myself at home, and I loved it. And it's a great product, and it's something that's very similar to kombucha. So like people who like kombucha, I definitely recommend trying. It's a little bit milder, and it's a little bit easier to to consume. Like, it's more palatable, and I think the fermentation properties are there, the honey properties are there, green tea properties are there. So that's really what differentiates Jun from kombucha. Kombucha is typically black tea and sugar, and Jun is green tea and honey. And so it really is just like a different way of making kombucha. And like I said earlier, I'm really interested in taking what's been done and trying to do it a little bit better and a little bit different. And so Jun is not really popular, and I felt like it needed to get out there, because who doesn't love honey, and like everyone knows green tea. Yeah, and everyone knows what honey has to offer. And so I just felt like it was something that you don't see a lot. And my biggest goal is to provide a good quality, safe product to customers. And Jun is it's a pretty difficult product, just because it has honey, and sometimes the honey can compete with the ferment, because honey has its own properties. But if we get a good starter and we get a good SCOBY mother together for our customers, then I'm very confident that they can be successful. And so I wanted to provide something that was strong and that was of quality, so that more people could look at it, try it, experiment it, taste it, flavor it, do what they want to do with it, try a new ferment. Because there are a lot of people out there who sometimes say that like kombucha is a little bit too acidic, a little bit too much for them. And so to me, Jun is like kombucha light almost, but it's its own thing because it's honey and green tea. So it's like kombucha, but it's just different, and it's good, and we're not seeing a lot of it, and I want to see more of it. So how do you do that? When you have my job, you put it out there. So that's what I'm trying to do. Jun is intended to be a product like very similar to kombucha. So the way that you would make and ferment and consume kombucha, I would hold very similar to Jun. So you're gonna have your primary fermentation. Part of offering the customer a quality product is that the fermentation time is going to take less for them. So traditionally, like Jun takes longer to ferment, but I'm hoping by having like a strong, continuous culture that we have, that we are giving them, and we're giving it to a live, right? We're selling these live, so we're really increasing the customer's odds to be successful with this, and then with that, they can flavor just like they would kombucha. I would say whatever you can do with kombucha, you can do with Jun. Typically that's drinking. I've seen people make salad dressings with it. I've seen people do stuff with SCOBYs, make fruit leather with the SCOBYs, all that kinds of stuff. The only thing I would say for Jun is that the SCOBYs grow a little bit slower, so like you're not gonna have, typically with kombucha, people end up with SCOBY hotels because the SCOBYs grow so fast, so rapid, and we just don't know what to do with them. And so fruit leather is like a great option to use up SCOBYs, because eventually they will die, but Also, like, I find that a lot of our customers, and personally, we like to do like whole usage, and so finding recipes that you can put your SCOBYs into is great. Like, I've seen people eat SCOBYs in salads, which personally I wouldn't do because they're a little, you know, like texture weird for me, but fruit leather is a great option. And so absolutely, like, everything you can do with SCOBYs, you can do with Jun and Jun SCOBYs. And
so if I already have a kombucha SCOBY, you know, ready to go, am I able to turn that into a Jun SCOBY?
Yes. Would I recommend it? No. So the answer is yes. Realistically, like, any SCOBY can be transferred to any type of tea, right? So you can make green tea kombucha. And I would, like, if I was transitioning a kombucha SCOBY to a Jun SCOBY, I probably would, like, make sure my kombucha culture was strong, phase that into it, like a green tea and sugar culture, then phase that into like a true Jun honey and green tea culture. There's some controversy out there about, like, well, kombucha Jun SCOBYs are not true Jun SCOBYs, and so there's I don't know if you would call it debate or just like a lack of history of where Jun originated. And so some people argue that Jun has its own origins, I think in Russia was where I read. But, you know, kombucha is originally tied back to Asia. And so there are some people that say that Jun SCOBYs came from kombucha SCOBYs. But at the end of the day, like, your kombucha SCOBY is grown, fed, loved on black tea and sugar, and so it is used to the minerals, nutrients, etc. that are coming off of that product. And so you're going to have a higher risk of problems, and overall I think you'll be less successful trying to convert a kombucha SCOBY to Jun, which is part of the reason why I wanted to offer this product, is because you're increasing your chances of something going wrong, and it's going to take batch after batch after batch to really get it acclimated, and so many things can go wrong in that time. You know, I've been working on growing like white tea SCOBYs and hibiscus SCOBYs and stuff like that, but I would never, you know, deliver that to our customer without having like multiple batches and those SCOBYs really bred for those teas. And I would say the same thing when transferring a kombucha SCOBY into a Jun SCOBY, is that you really want it acclimated to the environment that it's going to be growing in. And so I think you would have like a longer lead time to like a successful batch of Jun, which is again like part of the reason why we're just offering the Jun SCOBY off the bat. Because like at the end of the day, 100% my goal is to make sure that our customers are 100% successful, and that they have what they need, and that I'm providing them with what they need. And so it makes more sense for us to give them the SCOBY with the intention of the green tea and honey, if that's what they want to use it for, rather than like we're basically cutting that step out from them, you know, is what I'm trying to say. So we didn't convert kombucha SCOBYs, we got Jun SCOBYs. So if you're the crowd that believes like all Jun SCOBYs are kombucha SCOBYs, cool. I'm not sure if I believe one way or the other, but at the end of the day, our SCOBYs, regardless of whether or not you believe Jun SCOBYs are unique or they come from kombucha, ours are bred for this intention. And so we've cut out those steps for the customer, and we've created that product so that they can be successful and they don't have to worry about doing that conversion, so to speak, if that makes sense.
It does. That leads me into my next question. Do you have any brewing tips when it comes to Jun SCOBY?
My biggest tip would be put your honey in while the tea is hot so that you can get all of the honey out of your measuring cup, which sounds silly, but you know, like we all know honey's a mess, and it's sticky and it's hard to get out. So if you just use a little bit of like hot water off your tea, and kind of swirl that around the bottom of your measuring cup, you'll be able to get all your honey out. The interesting thing about Jun too is that the recipe is slightly different, but it works, you know, it's good, it's magically delicious. So trust the recipe. It's gonna look different from kombucha, but trust the recipe, because you know, pure cane sugar and honey are gonna have different actual sugar concentrations at the end of the day. You know, pure cane sugar is typically like 100% sucrose, I think is what it is. Whereas honey is going to have like other properties to it and other pieces to the puzzle, so to speak. And so, yeah, definitely trust your recipe. Be patient. Jun SCOBYs take a fair amount of time to grow. Like I was talking about earlier about the antibacterial properties of honey. If you're not trusting your recipe and allowing the balance to work, sometimes, you know, honey will automatically try to, I guess, like protect itself. I don't really know what you would call that, but it wants to, you know, like it fights infections for wounds, like it wants to ward off that bad bacteria. What we would call bad bacteria, but in a situation of Jun, it's not necessarily a bad bacteria, but like honey doesn't know that. And so the SCOBYs are going to take longer to grow, so just be patient with that. The fermentation process is probably like, you know, most people do kombucha for anywhere I've seen from like 5 to 10 days. I would say like at 3 days on that for Jun.
Okay.
And again, like that's customer's choice though too, you know, like that's the great thing about providing a product to the customer that they can do themselves, is that they can choose the potency, quote unquote potency of their culture, you know, like how acidic, at what day do they like their Jun, at what day do they like their kombucha. And so I guess my last piece of advice would be, if this is a new product for you, like if you have never had Jun, but you know kombucha, it is going to ferment a little bit differently. So once you hit the day that you like your kombucha, start tasting it every day. And when it's to the point that you like it, put it in your secondary, put it in your fridge, do whatever you would normally do with your process. I mean, that's the great thing about our cultures, is you can try and acclimate it to the way you like it. If you overdo it, just start the next batch and try again. You know, Juns are continuous brew, just like kombucha is. You can do it over and over as long as you keep a little bit of your starter tea and you keep your mother. You can make as many batches as you want.
Okay. All right, so when can we expect Jun SCOBY to be in stock? Do you have a launch date?
So it's coming out. Our launch date is supposed to be July 27th. So far we are on goal with that. That's going to be both the culture and the kits. So we're hoping to have what we're planning to put together is going to be a kit that's going to have everything. So in the past, everything was everything but the jar. This time we're doing everything and the jar. So we're trying to step up our game a little bit. And get a really all-inclusive kit to the customers. So the kits this time are going to have your green tea, they're going to have your honey, they're going to have your SCOBY with the starter tea, they're going to have your butter muslin, they're going to have your jar. I think they're going to have butter muslin. They're going to have your jar, you know, whatever. I don't know if we're going to do lids because they don't need lids. So those are still in the works, but yeah, launch date we're hoping is July 27th. We're still on track for that, so it's going to be good.
All right, Cara, it's been so great talking to you about all things Jun SCOBY. I just want to know if you have any parting words for our listeners.
Try it.
Yeah?
It's great. I put a lot of love into this product. Everything that we do here, like everything that we're researching, everything that we're trying, like we're putting a lot of love and a lot of care into, because we want it to be successful and we want the customers to be successful. And I really like Jun, and I'm really hoping that everyone else does too, and I'm really looking forward to spreading the word.
We are equally as excited to try Jun. We can't wait. I want to thank you so much for being with us today, Cara, taking your time away from
fermenting.
Yeah, fermenting, and
it's cool. It's a nice break.
Chatting with us about this, and we're looking forward to the new product launch of Jun SCOBY coming soon.
I'm excited. Really excited. Yeah. Finger guns. Yeah.
Thanks, Cara.
Very excited. No problem.
So with that, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of the Cultures for Health podcast. Now that you know all about Jun SCOBYs, why don't you give it a try yourself? We have dozens of recipes, how-to videos, and articles for beginners and pros on our website, culturesforhealth.com. Once again, I'm Wendy. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.